So this is a screencast for the chapter 6 of Gibbons. It starts with the quote, literacy in a second language develops as in the first, globally, not linearly, and in a variety of rich contexts. I think that's a really good quote, especially to summarize the context of this chapter. It says that before students read a text, they need to have a knowledge of phonics, but just by itself, that knowledge is really not helpful. Students also need a background knowledge in the language. Sometimes just saying background knowledge, it can be assumed that we're talking about background knowledge of the subject, but that's not true. Readers draw knowledge from reading either through semantic knowledge, syntactic knowledge, or graphophonic knowledge, which was a word that I did not know until reading the text. Semantic knowledge is knowledge of the world, a specific field, or a specific text, some of their background knowledge that they may have. Syntactic knowledge is knowledge of the language, and graphophonic knowledge is a knowledge of the relationship between sounds and letters, hence the phonic part of the word. Learners, though, may have to sound out words letter by letter, and then they may know how to say the word, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they'll understand what they're saying. They'll just have some in-the-head knowledge, and that is asking them to draw on things that they already know, which may be knowledge of the text, if they have any background knowledge of what the text is talking about, or if they have any background knowledge of the field, that can assist them in understanding what they're reading. But that's going to develop with the familiarity, so exposing them more to the subject or to the text in various different ways through different scaffoldings. And that can be used to interpret something that's confusing. Oftentimes in an English class for English non-English learners, English speakers that are developing more sophisticated types of English, we talk about using context, so words that surround the word that we don't understand. Meaning for English learners often occurs in the interaction of text and that in-the-head knowledge that I just talked about. The roles of the teacher, the roles of the reader are that of codebreaker, which means they distinguish the sounds of English and understand how the sounds work when they're combined. So it's not a non-important skill, but at the same time we don't want to overemphasize it because it doesn't really teach the meaning of the words. It just teaches the words themselves. But for all EL learners know, they could just be speaking gibberish. Text participant is another role that they can have, where the text is connected with the in-the-head knowledge that the student has. It requires content knowledge, it requires cultural knowledge, both cultural knowledge that they bring and cultural knowledge of the text. Another role that they can have is a text user, where they're able to discern various social activities that accompany the reading. It's the difference between reading to relax and reading for school, reading in a way that's academic. Finally, another role, the final role, is text analyst. That would be someone that's a critical reader and recognizes text's particular views of the world. So these four roles all kind of interlock, and they're all integral to developing proficient readers. They shouldn't be seen as like a sequence of events. So it's not like, students that are level 1 or level 2, level 3, that way. Students can all be at all sorts of different levels in these things depending on where their understanding is for the context of the text. This is what will take place during the reading of a text, and it's also something that can take place after the reading of a text, in which case the teacher, which would be myself in that context, can try to gain feedback from the students, from the EL learners, and see where they're at.